The Grinch is not going to steal Christmas this year, but many Trojans were disappointed it wasn't a white Christmas yesterday. Let's not forget the best gift that we got 3 months ago. I'm sure that it'll make this a very Merry Christmas. We're going to get into that and a lot more on this episode of Trojans Talk on Tap.
Go Trojans go. LBC pouring Cardinal and gold. The next man up is the next Heisman. Only bleed USC. Yes, we've been built to win. Catch roses while we ball all across the map. Too strong, fight on as Trojan Talk on Tap.
Welcome back to another episode of Trojans Talk on Tap. Glad to have you back. For those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. Here we talk about USC football, sometimes college football, and always a craft beer recommend to upgrade your tailgate beer. In this case, your holiday beer. We're going to get into it a little bit later, but I've got for you a great beer by Pure Project. They're a brewery out of San Diego, California, and this is a farmhouse saison called Finger on the Pulse. Stick around a little bit later. What's been going on, Trojans? Are we a little bit nervous? Do we have angst? Asking the questions, why can't we get a defensive coordinator? I'm here to offer my perspective on the crazy last couple of weeks right before the holidays. As you recall, USC fired its defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, on the 5th of November, shortly after the University of Washington debacle in the Coliseum. And so a lot of activity has been happening in close to the last month. And so it's caused a lot of animosity, angst. Not to worry. We've got the most important person in place, and that is Jen Cohen. She is the gift from 3 months ago. But let's kind of just review real quickly where we're at and where we need to go. It all came to a head, I think, yesterday when there was misinformation out there. In fact, so much so, there is a USC football website where two staffers had differing opinions on a defensive coordinator that was to be named as soon as yesterday or early this morning. I'll let you know that I had a couple sources Wednesday night text me with this same person's name, Tony White. It sounded like, okay, well, I woke up in the morning and I checked a couple other sources and I was hearing the same thing. Well, we were all fooled. And the only one that made out with a white Christmas was Tony White, the defensive coordinator at Nebraska. Turns out his agent was doing his job and is doing it very well because he got Tony White a raise, as it was reported today by the University of Nebraska. So that has caused a little bit of confusion. But here is why I think there is I guess, misinformation that's out there, or why Trojans are frustrated. I think that's the correct term. But I've got a couple of reasons. I want you to drop down in the comment what your thoughts are for the Trojans' frustration. I think it was the deal with Jim Leonhard, who it was reported that was negotiating with USC, and a deal couldn't be consummated. Hey, you got differing interests. There's a lot of speculation that Jim Leonhard wanted to be an NFL head coach or a coordinator, or perhaps a college head coach. There was always the living arrangement issues. He's a Wisconsin guy, Midwest guy with a family. Did he really want to come out to LA? And the NFL has a different timing cycle than college football. So a deal just couldn't happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen in the future, but you don't just negotiate with one person, one party. Jen Cohen had a list in my mind. When that list was developed, I don't know. But I'm thinking probably after that Notre Dame game, she realized something is not going to work out. And if you haven't read Ryan Karchi's LA Times article that was published yesterday about the 3 months that Jen Cohen has been on the job as a USC athletic director, you need to check it out because there's some pointed questions, and we're going to get into it, that she answers. And I think it adds a lot of clarity, and we should realize, Trojans, we've got the right person that's going to make the right hire for this job. But you add up the Jim Leonhard non-deal, what happened yesterday with Tony White, that causes frustration. And then also, yes, everybody's pointing out the transfer portal opens up on Monday, December 4th. It's coming up. And we see the names that are that are heading into the portal, and that adds more angst. And then also, if you take a look at all the different coaches that are being hired in college football, whether it's a head coach or coordinators, Penn State just hired their offensive coordinator, I believe yesterday, and then most recently you had Kurt uh, uh, Signetti getting hired as the Indiana head coach, and then last week you had the most notable one was Jonathan Smith going to Michigan State from Oregon State, and then obviously Mike Elko going to Texas A&M. So that all adds up, and people are asking, why can't USC hire a defensive coordinator? What is going on? Do we not have the resources? Is it, people are having Helton PTSD, and they're having PTSD from the former leadership that is USC. Let's not forget that Carol Folt hired Jen Cohen. That was a home run hire 5 days before the season started. She comes with a lot of experience. And so Trojans, I'm not concerned. Let the process play out. But getting back to what I was saying, you take a look at, here's an example with Hayes Fawcett. Hayes Fawcett is speaking to what we were talking about. The transfer portal is absolutely insane. If you think what you've seen so far is crazy, just wait a couple days. This was from his Twitter post yesterday. And just before I'm doing this video, Cam Ward from Washington State is entering the portal. It's reportedly he can make up to in excess of $1 million a year. There's a market for him. There's demand. Also, earlier going into the portal, Riley Leonard, Travis Etienne from Clemson, the running back, obviously DJ Ukulele from Oregon State, and Dante Moore from UCLA, as well as Grayson McCall. Trojans that have hit the portal so far, Raleek Brown, Darwin Barlow, Zamarian Gordon, and Jamar Sakona. And there's going to be more because that is the nature of college football. But as I'd mentioned, we have the right leadership, not only from Carol Folt, but we have the resources, we have the athletic director, and we're fully aligned. And so we're going to find the right defensive coordinator to get this right. It's very, very important as we're going into the Big Ten next year. And obviously the defense and special teams are concerns of USC where we have to get it right. And I'd mentioned Jen Cohen and the LA Times article. And some highlights that I found that were very telling will point us in the right direction. Why Jen Cohen, I feel comfortable with the process that she's going through to find the next defensive coordinator. Asked a comment about the disappointing season, Jen Cohen says, first of all, really disappointing year. We had big goals and we have high expectations for us here. And that's why we're here. He loves the pressure of that and the expectation of that, and so do I. He being Lincoln Riley. So disappointing and frustrating, not just for the coaches and players, but obviously for our fans. That's correct. And for our former athletes. That's not the standard, and that's not where we're going. As far as Lincoln goes, I have full confidence in him. He has my full support. It's been incredible getting a chance to work more closely with him. We'll be looking at everything, every aspect of this program, whether that's personnel, whether that's recruiting, whether that's additional resources, how this football facility is going to help, and NIL. Everything needs to be on the table every year in every program because that's how you continue to keep up and build a plan that's more sustainable. So I'm just looking forward to supporting Lincoln Riley. All great comments by Jen Cohen. She gives you insight of what she is working with, what she's dealing with. And by the way, congratulations. USC just broke ground a little over a week ago on the new football facility. They're demoing Dado Field. You may have heard the USC baseball team will be playing its home games, its weekend home games, for the next 2 years at Great Park in Orange County and playing its home games during the week at LMU, and practices will be held at El Camino College. So the football facility is already starting. That's one of the things that Jen Cohen is working with. She's definitely a leader, and she is involving herself with all the different programs at USC. With respect to football, there was another question that was asked that I thought was telling. And this regarded the Alex Grinch firing. And she says, I mean, one, that was Lincoln's decision. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that it was Lincoln's decision, and that my job is to work with Lincoln ongoing all the time about the evaluation of the program and how we're going to keep reaching the goals that we both have for this program, which are hefty, lofty, and big. And that's why we're here, and that's what we're motivated for. And if you recall, Jen Cohen did not obviously hire Lincoln Riley. That was Mike Bone. And so they have to form a partnership, and they are doing so. They have done so during this season. Moving on, regarding the Alex Grinch firing, Jen Cohen says, so when things aren't where we need them to be in any aspect of the program, we're going to have conversations about it because we're partners. And it's my job to do everything I can to remove obstacles for him. Let me repeat that. And it's my job to do everything I can to remove obstacles for him and our other coaches and create opportunities for them and provide the resources they need to be great. And personnel is part of that. Remove obstacles. Alex Grinch was an obstacle. And whether you believe it or not, I think Jen Cohen influenced Lincoln Riley to fire Alex Grinch. Now, hey, it's good cop, bad cop. Jen Cohen says in the interview that was Lincoln Riley's decision. Oh, yeah? Well, you watch Lincoln Riley's press conferences all the way up until the last one, and he was talking about how we were so close. We were a play away. So I believe that one of the obstacles that Jen Cohen determined was very visible after that Notre Dame game. There was no way that you go into South Bend and that is the measuring stick, and you could see that the defense wasn't happening. I think she was putting together a list at that time. What do you think? Am I wrong? Or do you think she had a list going after another game? Perhaps it was the loss to Utah at the Coliseum. Let me know in the comments what you think. But lastly, another pointed question to Jen Cohen that I think speaks volumes is this: the process. People want to know about what's going on with the defensive coordinator search. And Jen Cohen goes on to say, I would just say this about the process. To me, the coordinator searches almost do feel in some ways like a head coaching search. It does. Over time, they start to feel more like that, just as far as the process, protocol, just how they work. But what I would say is the process is a good, healthy combination of urgency with diligence. Ultimately, we'll get the right person for this job. And that's the most important thing. You want to act with urgency. You want to make sure that you're going through the candidates and doing your process for that. But you also want to be diligent enough in this landscape that we're in where there's so much movement and change, and that's just starting. The domino effects. We still have the conference championship games to be played. So there's going to be more change and churn in the whole landscape of college football. And so what we're going to get the right guy, and we're going to go get him hired as soon as we can. Or we're going to make sure that it's the best person for the job. What this tells me is Jen Cohen has a plan. She knows what she wants. She knows what she's doing. She's calculated. She's competitive. And she has a list and she's working at it. So she has multiple people she's talking to and is kept close to the vest. So there are a couple of candidates this weekend that are playing in championship games. There's obviously the defensive coordinator at Texas that used to be employed at Washington. And then there's Glenn Schumann. He's the co-defensive coordinator at Georgia. Are these guys being interviewed? I don't know. Are they being considered? Most likely. But the process will come to a conclusion, and let's just be confident that we have the right athletic director and we have the right leadership at USC, and the right defensive coordinator will be hired. So with that, let's get into a little craft beer recommend. Hey, like I mentioned, I've got finger on the pulse, just like Jen Cohen's got the finger on the pulse on the USC program. This is from Pure Project. They are a great brewery out of San Diego, California, and this is a farmhouse saison. If I have to compare it to like a white wine, it's like a Sauvignon Blanc. Saisons were consumed by French farmers They have a midday break, and they wanted a light beer to head back in the field and keep on working. This is 6% ABV. You're going to have notes of lemon, earthy notes. They use in this beer, they're using a French uh, yeast. So let's give it a shot. Wow, definitely crushable. It's got a grassy, earthy, kind of easy drinking beer. If I could compare it to something that maybe you've had out there, it's kind of like a blonde. It's an easygoing Pilsner lager. You can tell by the color, kind of straw in color. But this is definitely a great beer. Pure Project, if you haven't checked them out of San Diego, they make a lot of great beers, a lot of great hazy and West Coast IPAs. But this is the first time I've had a Saison from them. Very tasty. We'll see what happens with the defensive coordinator. Enjoy the Pac-12 championship game and championship weekend, and we'll catch you later. Fight on, Trojans.